Hit it!
Hey everybody, this is the Computer Geek 010101001 here, and today we are going to be doing a little bit of a system swap out here in the tech room. So let's go ahead and jump straight to the video. So quite recently I was given this HP Pavilion 500 personal computer from a friend of mine. And I don't know why the system got taken out of use, but I'm willing to bet it's because of a message popping up on the screen that says your Windows 8 computer is out of support, so they bought another one, and this system was indefinitely sidelined. And just earlier today I actually yanked the RAM from this system and stuck it in a customer's machine and sent it out the door. A little bit of a story behind that. Basically I ordered 8 gigs of RAM from eBay and got 6 instead, so I couldn't give that to a customer. But I've sent the RAM back and I'll be getting a refund for it. So anyways, okay. Anyways, so this computer here is actually pretty modern compared to I don't know, some of my other machines. But that computer is pretty modern compared to some of these other computers. This computer was manufactured, I believe this computer was made in either 2012 or 2014. I'm willing to bet somewhere around 2013, I believe, because Windows 8.0 was released in 2012, and what a disaster that operating system was. And 2013, I believe, is whenever Windows 8.1 whenever Windows 8.1 was released, which, let's just put it this way, is a whole heck of a lot better than Windows 8.0. Windows 8.0 just grinds my gears in a way they should not ever be ground. Anyways, moving along. This system, it works. Well, it worked up until I pulled the RAM from it. The system worked. Everything was good in it, with the exception of the hard disk. It shipped with a Seagate ST2000 DM001, and right off the bat, I didn't even have to say the model number. All I had to do was say the word Seagate, and you basically automatically knew what was going on with this system. Yep, hard disk failure. So, this system over here is going to be replacing the main office computer, mainly because the main office computer, while it is newer than the Tech Room file server system, the Tech Room main office computer is certainly showing its age. That is for sure. In fact, I have thought about this before, and whenever I set these systems up, frankly, I should have put the file server system in as the main office computer, because the AMD APUs of 2009 and 10 were just horrendously slow compared to their Intel counterparts. So yeah, the Tech Room main office computer should have been the file server, but it didn't work out that way, so here we are. But the AMD APU in the Tech Room main office computer right now is really starting to show its age. The whole system is just really starting to show its age. The Ethernet controller in the main office computer is limited to 100 megabits, so I'd have put in a gigabit NIC. The system has absolutely no USB 3 hardware at all whatsoever, so I had to put in a USB 3 card into the system. This system has both on board. I very strongly believe that it has gigabit Ethernet and it definitely has USB 3 ports on the front and on the back of the system. So that will basically indefinitely sideline those two expansion cards in the system, and if it is indeed possible to take I should be able to get that gigabit NIC and bridge it to conventional PCI, drop it in my firewall system, and create an actual Tech Room guest network that is completely isolated off from my actual private working LAN. So there's definitely going to be a few benefits to this system getting put in as the Tech Room main office computer. So, yeah. Anyways, we're going to start out by shutting down the main office computer. I'm going to pull it out of its little cubby hole here, which is probably going to be a heck of an exercise in impromptu contortionism, because if you have not personally, there are very few people on this planet that have personally seen me get down there and try to do something back there. I know of probably about 2 people on this planet that have seen that, and possibly a third one. Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 people on this entire planet that have personally seen me try to get down there and do something. And you know who you are if you have. And let me tell you what, it's real fun trying to do contortionism down there. That's not something I'm putting on video, let alone making any form of public record. So, we'll be back shortly. Okay, here we are with both systems open. Let me tell you what, getting the old Tech Room main office computer out of there was certainly something else entirely. Because not only did I have cables that were like a few inches too short, I also had to deal with the fact that it's hot back there and it's dark. So, yeah, we're just gonna do a side-by-side comparison between these two systems. So, right off the bat, I and probably you can see some similarities and differences to these systems. The overall case design is somewhat similar, except like the hard drive cage here, this case is a whole lot more open and easier to work with. The motherboard looks pretty similar. The motherboards look pretty similar. The cases, they look kind of similar. This over here, this is cramped. Now, HP put this giant panel thing up here, and instead of having like a hard drive cage, they just had it mounted to they just have the hard drive mounted to the case using the 4 mounting screws on the back of the hard drive. So, and of course see, you have a bunch of dead, wasted space back here, and you just have a bunch of dead, wasted space here in the back of the case that will never be utilized. Like the system has 6 SATA ports on the motherboard. At most, you will only be able to utilize 3 of those 6 serial ATA ports. Now, both of these systems either have or had wireless at some point. This system had it deleted years ago. This system, the wireless hardware got deleted out of the system years ago during the cleaning whenever I was pruning unnecessary devices from various systems, and I got a whole lot more custom with my system configurations, like going into the BIOS and just turning off devices and stuff that did not need to be enabled, did not need to be taking up resources, and certainly did not need to be assigned an interrupt request line. Now, this system uses a much more generalized power supply, a Bestech ATX-250-12Z, not the ATX-250-12E that was known for having its 5-volt standby section go bad and blow up the motherboard and most of the stuff attached to it. Such as, like when the 5-volt standby, on the motherboards, 5-volt standby generally services a number of hardware components. It services your chipset, it services your low pin count I/O controller, and yeah, it services your chipset, both your North Bridge and your South Bridge, services your low pin count I/O controller, and if the chipset has decided to turn on power to some USB peripherals, those USB peripherals will be connected to the 5-volt standby rail, basically direct connected through the 5-volt standby rail of your power supply. And you might also have PCI Express hardware that pulls at least a little bit of power off of your 5-volt standby section, such as host bus adapter cards with a cache feature that require a battery backup unit, so that in the event of a power failure, the cache does not get lost and you end up with majorly corrupted data. And whenever the hard disks come back up, whenever the power is restored and the hard disks come back up, as soon as they initialize, the host bus adapter will go ahead and flush its cache. Now, RAID controller cards with caches and BBUs will probably also draw off of your 5-volt standby section to keep the BBU charged. So, there's also that. So if your 5-volt standby section blows up, you're probably also going to lose most, if not all, of your expansion devices. You're definitely losing the entire motherboard. That's a given. You're probably going to end up losing most, if not all, of the USB devices attached to the system at the time the 5-volt standby section blows up. So, yeah, wow, talk about a digression. Holy cow. Anyways, but this system uses a much more generalized power supply. Bestech ATX-250-12Z. Now, this particular system uses a I wouldn't exactly say specialized, but I will definitely say it is a much more slimmed down and modernized design. Because all you get here is your 24-pin motherboard power connector. Yes, they were generous enough to spec out a power supply with the extra 4 pins on the end. You get your 4-pin CPU power connector, and you get, you get 4 serial ATA connectors, serial ATA power connectors. Any more than that, and you will suddenly be in need of a power supply upgrade. Now, there are cases in which, even though you cannot physically fit 4 serial ATA devices into the system, you might end up using all 4 of your serial ATA power plugs. One case being a large USB 3 card, such as a 5-port USB 3 card. That kind of thing will probably want or require a SATA power connector. The reason I know this is because the USB 3 card in my main computer has such a connector on it, and yes, I do have it plugged in. And that actually, I think I actually had to go grab another SATA cable out of my power supply box and plug that in. Which is another reason why, if you have a modular power supply, keep the box and cables handy. And if you're going to be doing upgrades and you're going to be messing around with power supply configuration, definitely get the box and cables handy. Anyways, how many digressions can one have in a single video? Anyways, this system over here still has its wireless hardware installed with the Wi-Fi antenna included. Unfortunately, Hewlett-Packard, in their infinite wisdom, you can definitely tell I'm not particularly a fan of Hewlett-Packard's system design. In fact, I actually had to work on HP, not an HP Omen computer, but a very high-end HP Envy, a very rather high-end looking HP Envy desktop computer. It's definitely a enthusiast-oriented computer, because it was a big, it had a big roomy case. You had a plethora of PCI Express expansion slots. It had an SSD and a hard drive, but HP just jacked up some of the core aspects of the system so badly. They had an SSD, like 128 gig SSD, which for a Windows 10 installation, 128 gigs is like absolute minimum. With 256 being recommended for office use, 512 or a terabyte strongly recommended for just general use. But no, they put 128 gig SSD in there, and they put a 1 terabyte, I think it was a WD black hard drive in there. And then HP did not properly carve up the Windows installation, so the OS and programs reside on the SSD, and the user's documents and stuff wind up on the hard drive. No, they literally just created an NTFS partition on the hard drive and called it data. Like, gee, thanks, HP. Oh, and then they had the hard drive up here. The hard drive cage had been designed so everything was at an angle, and they had to connect, and they had everything upside down. And then they had the stiffest SATA cables I have ever had the displeasure of interacting with. They even thought the grounding on the SATA cables wasn't enough, so they literally had their own custom SATA cables made, and they had a ground wire attached with a screw, a physical screw to the hard drive cage. And then on top of that, they had poor physical configuration. They had the hard drive in the middle and then the SSD up top, and that resulted in the SSD. Thankfully, they had the SSD in a 2.5 to 3.5 inch adapter tray, and due to the poor cable management on Hewlett-Packard's part, the little plastic piece on the end of the 2.5 to 3.5 inch adapter tray, like we connected SATA power and data cables, the plastic piece done come right off the end of the adapter tray. So yeah, what I ended up doing is I got completely fed up with the SATA cables, and I unscrewed the ground connection, I undid all of the SATA cables in the system, and they went bye-bye, out the door. Well, actually they're sitting in a box buried at the back of the shelf back there, but that doesn't really matter. The SATA cables left the system. And I just put generic looking orange SATA cables in there that'll do just fine without the extra unnecessary, very IBM-esque ground strap. Now, it wasn't really a braided copper ground strap like in my 1988 Model N keyboard, but it was a ground wire, like in your 1989 Model N keyboards, which I believe whenever IBM sold the keyboard and printer division to Lexmark in 1991, Lexmark omitted the ground wire entirely and just relied on the ground wiring provided by the PS2 cable and subsequently connected to the computer's physical frame. Anyways, but yeah, I got rid of the SATA cables and just put standard SATA cables in, and I left the SSD hanging loose, and I moved it to the bottom of the hard drive cage. Didn't screw it in or anything like that. So, but that system is up and running again. So yeah, holy cow, talk about a digression. Anyways, So yeah, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be swapping. Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to swap the RAM into this system, and then we're going to fire this system up and we're going to check it out. I'm going to show you the failed hard drive, and then I'm going to shut it down, and I'm going to swap the hard drive. And like with Linux, you don't have to reinstall your operating system or your chipset drivers or anything when you swap your hard disk, because provided that you told the installer to perform a generalized kernel installation, your system just should boot right up. And besides, we're going from an AMD APU to another AMD APU, and this AMD APU is pretty doggone snappy. Now, Windows 8.0 really doesn't help matters out here, but the general fact that we're going to a newer AMD APU is already kicking us out of the gate with a heck of a lead there. So, and while I'm at it, I'm also going to go ahead and delete the Wi-Fi hardware. I'm just going to delete the Wi-Fi card. And I'm probably gonna get the antenna out of here as well because it's not needed in the system. It's always gonna have a network connection over hardwired gigabit Ethernet. So, anyways, and the power connector on the CPU. I don't know why, but who's the OEM of the day? I've seen this brown power connector in these newer HP systems too. These brown power wiring actually in these newer HP systems too. And I just want to know who is the vendor that is doing this. Let's see. Chickeny Power Technology. That sounds familiar. Yeah. You see that HP switched to a cheaper vendor that wanted to save half a cent and use less expensive brown colored wire, but the pinouts, the pinouts are still the same. You got on the side of the connector closest to the little tab, you got your plus 12 volt, and on the other side you got ground. So at least they kept that same and didn't decide to use a ground as a plus 12 or something like that. But I'm just going to show you how cramped this system is. And it doesn't help that Hewlett Packard put a zip tie right here, which if you installed a second hard drive, you'd have to do something about that. And you would probably also have to do something about this power connector right here. You'd probably have to get an adapter and put in a right-angled power cable there. Like HP even put in a right-angled SATA connector, but they didn't put in a right-angled power connector for some reason. And as a result, your power connector ends up sticking up about 4,000 miles above your data connector. Anyway, so yeah, this system has a rather oddball memory configuration. 3 sticks. I think a 4 and a pair of 2s. All DDR3. Yep, DDR3. 4 gig. So we'll just go ahead and drop that in. After opening up the release levers. But yeah, they've got this cabling bundle here going right over the top of the memory module slots. So I'll just go ahead and drop that in. Take our next one out, and yep, a 4 and a pair of 2s. First one was a Super Talent branded one. Next one is this cheap, probably Chinese made Ram Axle branded one. Yanked out of another system. Yanked out of another system at some point or another. Don't know when. Don't know what system. But yeah. And here we have a Kingston branded. A very reputable brand, Kingston is. 2 GB module. So yeah, it is just a hodgepodge of memory modules here, and of course this is obviously going to limit the system to single. This is obviously going to limit the system to single channel mode. So if I wanted dual channel mode, I would definitely have to get matched sticks. And if I really wanted to bolster the system performance a little bit, I could get a 4x2 configuration and do 4 sticks of 2 gig and dual channel on both memory, and do dual channel mode on both the A and the B memory channels. So I'm not going to bother closing the case back up. So now, ding, 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 ding. So I'm just going to plug in our peripherals here. I'm using DVI because the monitor over here on my test setup is bugged. The monitor over here on my test setup is slightly messed up, and you can't get your EDID, your extended display identification data, over the VGA connector. I don't know if it's a problem with the cable I'm using or if it's a problem with the monitor itself, but you can't get your EDID over the VGA for some reason, and as a result Windows defaults to 1024 by 768 with a refresh rate of 60. So go ahead and plug in our power connector here. System stays off as I rightfully told it to do. And I'm going to go ahead and boot this thing up, and I'm going to go ahead and boot this thing up and pull up Passmark Disk Checkup, and then I'll show y'all what's going on here. Okay, here we are. I have the system booted up and Disk Checkup, Passmark Disk Checkup open. And as we can see, we have a ton of raw read errors. We have a ton of seek errors. That seems to be a characteristic of these Seagate drives. Our reallocated sector count is 0. And we see no set of downshift errors. 495 reported uncorrectable errors. A ton of command timeouts. Temperature difference from 100 is out on some kind of a million-mile bender right now, so ignore it. And we have 8 current pending sectors and 8 uncorrectable sectors. So yeah, this drive is definitely in some form of trouble. And if we go diving into our control panel, we go system and security, view event logs, and custom views, disk. That's something I created. After it gets its mind together. And as you can see, we have a number of warnings from the disk subsystem between 2017 and 2018. Yep, between 8/28/17 and 8/17/18. So, yep. And if we look into, and I got this particular trick from UXW Bill. If you go to the root of your C drive, and you go to View Options and change folder and search options, and you go to the View tab, and you choose Show Hidden Files, Folders, and Drives. I always uncheck hide extensions for known file types, and also uncheck hide protected operating system files. It'll show this system volume information folder. You right click that, Hit Properties, and it says this was created Saturday, March 8th, 2014. So yeah, the system was probably manufactured about 2014, I think. But I know when the Windows 8.1 update came out, everybody just jumped on it. So like I think Windows 8.1 was a free upgrade for all Windows 8 users. Yeah, and shutting down. Yeah, you can either go over here. Open up this Charms bar, hit Settings, then hit Power and shut down, or you can just do this neat, clever trick. There, shut down. Not that I care about the Windows install on that system, anyways. So there's that. So we'll go ahead and go back to a side-by-side view of these two systems. So I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect all my peripherals. And do my DVI connector. One thing I like about this monitor is it doesn't complain whenever I unplug the video cable. Which too many monitors these days do that. Like this Acer V206HQL, it does it. My dad's Acer HL23, I can't think of it now. My dad's really old Acer monitor from like 2008. It doesn't do that. My mom's monitor does. I don't think my two LG ML600 ML. I don't believe my LG ML600M-Bs, 32 ML600M-Bs do it. My Mitsubishi Diamond Pro 710. I don't think it does it. My Gateway EV700. I'm not sure if it does it or not. My 23-inch Apple Cinema display doesn't, and my Toshiba 32AV500U doesn't. So yeah, come to think of it, there's more monitors than I thought that don't complain about their signal cables being disconnected. My Dell FP23, my FP, I don't know, it's getting late here. Let me see, 1704 FP. Yeah, my Dell 1704 FPT1 definitely complains when the signal cable is disconnected. Anyways, so I'm gonna go ahead and swap the hard drives on this system just as soon as I find the tool I had in my hand, which, where is it right now? That's anybody's guess. I put it back in the tool holder, which was conveniently almost out of sight behind the computer. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo the SATA power and data connectors on here, which, what clever crap did they come up with this time? Nothing, thankfully. Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and dismount this drive from the system. There is a rather neat utility out there called ProduKey, PRODUKEY, that basically recovers the product keys off of the various Microsoft software packages installed on a typical Windows system. I know for sure that it'll recover Microsoft Windows and Microsoft Office product keys. I'm not sure if Microsoft Flight Simulator requires a product key, and if it does, if ProduKey will recover it. And here we have the lovely C-Trash 2 terabyte hard drive, which is suffering, manufactured September of 2013. So 8 years old, and it's 8 years old and it's failing. So yeah. But now that we've got the hard drive out of here, I'm going to go ahead and yank the hard drive from this other system. And this here, it's a little bit more complicated of an arrangement to get the hard disk out of here. But at least the case is a whole lot more open and permissive in you doing so. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug our SATA power just as soon as I depress this latching tab, and our set of data. One thing the other system does have going for it for sure is the fact that I'm not almost cutting my fingers trying to disconnect the hard drive, and the fact that I don't have to do this stupid pull tab, this stupid push tab thing to get the hard drive cage out of here. And on top of that, you have to undo hard drive screws. So, yep, and that's why we've got these nifty things called screwdrivers. But what I'll do is I'll just take the screws out of here and then I'll take the hard drive out and put it in this other system. Of course, this is off camera, but I need to see this more than y'all do. Bonk. There's my fourth screw. So out comes the hard drive. Set that there for now. And put that in there, and I'll put the two screws back in so the hard drive cage doesn't go running off on me. And that is just about off the side of the camera, is it? Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pull our PCI Express expansion cards out of the system. There goes the USB 3 card, and there goes the network card. And of course I really don't have any appropriately sized slot blanks to close those up, so I'm just going to have to leave that open. And then we can go and slap the cover back on this system. And find that I've expertly mismanaged something, or haven't been fixing it enough, because nothing's gone crash and bang or boom yet. Tighten that down and put that system off to the side and roll my screwdriver right off the table. I'm just going to go ahead and get my 4 hard drive screws for this system. Ow, HP, are you serious? Okay, now I can't cut myself on a zip tie that HP didn't flush cut properly. And hard drive in, and go ahead and get to installing it. I'm going to leave the SATA power and data disconnected for now, as I'm going to have to go and pop the front panel off of the system to disconnect the Wi-Fi antenna. And that involves cutting a zip tie. It go right out the front, right out to the front of the system. So off in front of the table we're going here. Pop these release levers, and oh wow, they didn't even bolt that. They didn't even bolt that in. It is a release tabbed thing. I don't know, it's something that we bend back to get it out of the way. Then we drop it down. And then we find that the cable has caught on something. And we just pull it right out of the system. And there's the Wi-Fi antenna deleted. And it looks like we have a DVD DVD multi-recorder, a CD reroutable ultra speed drive, yeah, combo CD DVD drive that supports DVD dual layer. So I'm going to assume the dual layer designation is on the writing end. Now that we have Wi-Fi antenna deleted from the system, we can probably go ahead. We can definitely go ahead and delete the Wi-Fi card. Too small. Okay, they must have put a Loctite on that. Doesn't look like it. And go ahead and yank the Wi-Fi card, and HP definitely underutilized it. You can see here there's connections for 2 antennas, probably for dual band operation, but HP only connected 1 antenna to the system. I'll go ahead and just place a little screw back in here, and that is definitely a mini PCI Express connector. So you could probably do an NVMe. So you could probably put an NVMe device in there. Not sure, not exactly sure how well it would work though. Wi-Fi antenna I put in there, and the Wi-Fi antenna I took out of here looks like the same Wi-Fi antenna I took out of the other system. So I imagine the Wi-Fi antenna would simply drop in and plug our SATA power and data connectors back in, and should be good to go. And HP still does this upside down case design, where they design the case so that way the motherboard goes in the system completely upside down, which I don't know why HP has an affinity for doing such a thing. But they do, and it's annoying to say, quite annoying to say the least. So now, go ahead and hook this system up, and we'll go ahead and boot up into Linux. Here we go. Wonder if the system's going to be unhappy about its options. Okay, Grub has just started up. So we're already off to a good solid start. And let's see, exposure, manual focus, go. And looks like the system just switched up in the high-res mode. There we go. Some error about initializing an i8042 controller, which that's definitely going to be in the low pin count I/O controller. A couple of ACPI errors, but we are booting up on an otherwise on basically an unmodified Linux installation. Of course, with no Wi-Fi. And let's go ahead and log in. Next screensaver. And I'll just blur that part of the screen out and we'll boot it up. So that really didn't take that long. The system seems relatively quiet. Of course, server not found. Well, gee, I wonder why. It's not like it's not connected to a network, but it seems like it's happy and everything. So, I'm going to go ahead and shut that down. And that was actually a pretty quick shutdown. So, We will continue with part 2 of this video sometime soon. Could be tomorrow, could be Monday. So anyway, we will be back at some point in the future. There's definitely going to be a but that's not something I'm putting on. That's not something I'm going to make. You know what? Let's try that entire phrase again. Okay, everybody, we are back several days later, and as you might be able to tell, some things have changed. I got the new main office computer hooked up in position, and it's up and it's working just fine. It's actually been up and running for 3 days, and I've got a YouTube tab pulled up right now. Of course, that YouTube tab really can't do anything else and play back because, well, this right here is the Tech Room Firewall system, and as you can very clearly see, it's not firewalling anything right now. Here we are. As you can see, I've got the system up here on the Tech Room table, and just confirming something real quick. Okay, you can see here I've got the system up on the Tech Room table at the moment, and we're going to be taking the network card that I took out of the main office computer, and I'm going to be going ahead and dropping it in this system right here. That's so that way I can have like a separate Tech Room, basically a Tech Room quarantine network, which is where stuff goes where I really don't want it touching my actual private network. So, here we are. So here we are, and I've got a StarTech PCIe X1 to PCI bridge thing here, and I've got, didn't show that on video, did I? And I've got this StarTech PCI Express X1 to PCI to conventional PCI bridge here, and I've got our PCIe X1 TP-Link gigabit network card, and as you can see, I have taken the full height bracket off of the card and instead put this little small low profile bracket on here, which I don't know when, but apparently a while back I very cleverly wrote GBE on here for gigabit Ethernet. Don't know exactly what I was thinking when I did that, but oh well. Anyways, we have 4 available PCI slots in here. However, only 3 are reasonably usable because this slot right here has a GPU right up against it. And actually just reminded myself of this. I'm going to be switching out the GPU for what is more or less a new in-box GeForce MX 4000. Now, I don't actually know if this GPU works or not, so we may get to have some interesting adventures here. It's a 3D Fusion. It is a 3D Fusion branded GPU, and the box is very weathered. In fact, the box actually has mold in it, so important. You must register your new 3D Fusion product in order for your warranty to be valid and to access technical support. Please take the time to do so now. I think the warranty on this card expired probably the better part of a decade ago. Now, the card that's actually in here at the moment, I don't think, I'm not entirely sure if it's actually a GeForce MX 4000. It is AGP, as the box says, and it says it has 128 megabytes of DDR video memory. And just looking at the card right now, I'm seeing, I believe, 64 megs right now, but there may also be some more under a heat sink or somewhere else hidden on the card where I can't actually see it. And let me see, 2005. GPU was certainly made in 2005. 4000. Yeah, I'm willing to bet that this is actually a GeForce MX 4000. I question myself here because the profile of the thing here on the box is profiled for what is probably a much bigger, a much higher end, a much faster, and probably a much more power-hungry card of sorts. So, yep. So now I'm gonna perform the very clever trick of removing an AGP graphics card from this system. It's a trick, all right, because there is a rivet positioned right smack in the way of this card. In fact, it actually infringes upon the screw a little bit. Yeah, here's what I have to do. I have to basically push the edge of the case out and then undo this locking tab down here without scratching the motherboard and slicing through some critical trace. Okay, looks like I've unlocked it, so I'm going to push out, pull up, and we're out. This is a GeForce 4 AGP 8X graphics card, a GeForce 4 Ti 4800 SE, as it says on its sign-on screen. It's an initialization screen that displays before it hands control off to the system BIOS. So Ti 4800 SE being swapped out for an MX 4000. So we'll go ahead and take our shiny new old stock graphics card out of its box.
Your Windows Vista disk. Look at that. Isn't that nice and shiny and pretty? Like all Microsoft products. Now,
and we can see here this is passively cooled, so that's a pretty surefire indication that this is indeed a less power-hungry graphics card, and that'll certainly decrease the load on the system's power supply. So we'll go ahead and drop in our GPU here. Again, doing some case wrangling to make it fit. And it just slides in. The retaining tab locks into place quite nicely. And now we can put the retaining screw back in and go on about our day. Now the TI 4800 SE that I just took out, it has VGA, S-Video. It has VGA and S-Video ports, and it also has a DVI-A, a DVI Type A port. That is to say, a DVI port with the 4 analog pins that facilitate connection to a passive DVI-A to VGA adapter such as this one. As you can note, there are 4 pins here, and I imagine one of them is, I imagine you have red, green, blue. Looks like this middle one here is likely a ground if the camera would ever hope to focus on it, as it is quite politely refusing to do. There we go. So you can see we probably have red, green, and blue signal lines here. Probably a serial data line, so that way the system can retrieve. So that way the attached monitor can so that way the computer can retrieve the attached monitor's extended display identification data, or EDID, and probably for the system to tell what type of monitor it is. And then this wide connector here is probably a ground of some sorts, and it fits onto the graphics card, just like so. At least that would be the general working concept. So that's what those 4 pins are for. So, and the new graphics card has S-Video and plain old 15-pin VGA. Now, we're going to do some card switcheroos here. So, here's an orange slot on the very bottom of this case that you probably can't see, that I believe is supposed to be an enhanced version of the conventional PCI slots. Probably has access to more data. Probably has access to higher bandwidths on PCI bus. And right now, what's installed in there is really a waste of the slot. It's a 10100 card. It's a 10100 Ethernet card that's served as this system's WAN connection, or wide area network connection. And we're going to go ahead and demote that to one of the standard PCI slots on here. As you can see, I just went and pulled a slot blank out. So I'm going to go ahead, put the network card in there, drops into the nice satisfying click. So we'll go ahead and put that in. And now we are screwed into the system. And this bridge here, this PCI Express to conventional PCI bridge here is a bit weird in the fact that it has this little slot thing here at the end where the tab of the card you're bridging to PCI goes into, and that requires that you install the low profile bracket so that way it fits within the case. Now if you have the full height bracket installed, it's still going to work perfectly fine. However, it's going to stick up out of the case by a rather obnoxious length. So we'll go ahead and we'll drop our bridge in first. Then we'll go ahead and drop in the card. And then I'll find most conveniently that the holes do not actually match up, because between conventional PCI and PCI Express, they flipped the orientation of the screw hole around, probably to prevent similar situations to this, i.e. inserting a PCI Express device into a conventional PCI slot. They are not electrically compatible. They are definitely not electrically compatible, at least not without some kind of a bridge device, such as the one we are going to be using here. So, I'll go ahead and block off that particular slot. I'm not putting the other network card back in it for a multitude of reasons. Number one, it's just a pain in the butt to screw in and unscrew cards in this particular slot, because the case designers put it most conveniently behind a little metal structural reinforcement tab, which puts that screw kind of in a shadow, and it's awkward to get to. And second of all, I've already screwed this card in. I'm not undoing it, so there. And last of all, the WAN cable does not have a locking tab on the end of it. And down here at the bottom, it's a little bit of a stretch to get it down there due to how it was originally routed in 2018 whenever I redid some of the cable management, well, a lot of the cable management actually, and it's a bit of a pain to get it to do what I want it to do down there, which is stay in place. So I'm going to go ahead and drop our card back in there, one slot higher. And then I'm basically going to hijack the screw for the next slot down and use that as a retaining screw to actually keep it in. So let me see, graphics card, a couple of network cards. Looks like we're good here. So I'm going to stop the video and boot the system back up and verify that all of our networking devices are here, present, and accounted for.